Hi, this is Patricia Stepler with Your Inside Power, where we are teaching you how to utilize what you have inside of you to accomplish your goals and dreams. So my topic today is on plans. And the question is, does your plan work? Maybe I should have asked first, do you have a plan? And then, does your plan work? And next would be, are you working your plan? You see, all three of those are very important to accomplishing a goal. First, you have to have that goal, then you have to have a plan, and then you have to work that plan. So let's look at that today. I have in the show notes here, a goal without a plan is a wish. And that's exactly what happens to so many people. They set this goal, they don't know how they're going to achieve it, and that's not really important. What's important is that you do something to move forward, and that's what we're going to talk about today, because if you don't, then that goal is merely a wish and a dream, and it's not going to happen. You must do something, not just think about it. Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "Plans are nothing. Planning is everything." This is one thing I see a lot of my clients not do initially, is to devise a plan. And I think we've been taught that, set your goal, maybe have some steps in between, but we don't really plan how we're going to do it and what actions maybe we need to take. We may set a goal and then have sub goals, but we never get to the part of setting that action. When is it going to be done? And things like that to get that plan moving. And even some plans that I have seen where people set the plan, they say who's in charge, and they give a date, still don't get done. Why? We'll get to that in a minute. So your plans, you have to have a way to measure the progress and to see that you're getting closer. So you have to have a detailed plan, and it has to be something that's going to motivate you. And that's the reason sometimes goals don't happen. I've seen this in teams where the team is setting a goal and they say, okay, this person's responsible, or this group of people is responsible, and here's the date they're responsible for. And yes, they may absolutely turn in something on that date or around that date, but is it any good? Because were they really motivated to do it? Or was it an intellectual process? Oh, I've got to do this. And so maybe the day or two before, kind of like a study for a final exam, the day or two before, maybe that's when you start to study, and that's when you start to do this plan. And it's so ineffective because there's no motivation. There's no excitement there. You see, if you want to accomplish something great in your life, you have to get motivated and you have to get inspired so that when you take action every day, you are taking action with the inspiration of where your goal is. When I get to take action and I do things, and there are tasks that I do not like to do. I am not going to sugarcoat that. There are things that I do not like to do. And someday, some of those activities will be given to somebody who does enjoy doing them. But here's the difference between successful people and people that are not successful. Successful people will do things regardless of whether they like doing them, because they're not after that goal. They're after the result. So going back to my son worked out harder than any kid on any of his teams. Why? Because he had an inspired goal, and he would do things that most kids would not even think of doing. And he would do them because he had a purpose and a goal, and it was huge and it was motivating to him. And so he would go the extra mile to do what most people would not do in order to accomplish that goal. And that's what we have to do. Doesn't mean he liked them. Do you think he liked spending his own time doing push-ups and running in our backyard when he probably already ran in his practice? No, Do you think he liked giving it all every time he went to practice? No. But he did it because he was taking an inspired action to do it. And that's what we need to learn to do. We need to learn to take inspired actions. Don't like doing social media, don't want to do those posts, but you do them because you want the result that they're going to give. Okay? Now, so we have to have something we can measure our progress. We have to something that motivates us, and we have to write it down. We have to write out a plan. Write out exactly the plan that you want. And then start doing it. It may take you a day, it may take you a week to really think and spend time. This is one of the biggest downfalls people have, because they do not take the time to clarify and visualize and map it out. Now, does that mean that that's exactly the plan you will follow? I guarantee you probably won't be. And that's okay. You see, you have a plan, you start putting into action. And as you start putting into action, things are going to happen. And as those things start to happen, you're going to have to go back and make adjustments, because not everything's going to turn out in your perfect little way that you intended for it to happen. So you are going to have to make adjustments. They say that 98% get more accomplished, or 98% gets accomplished when combining measurement, motivation, and planning. So if you really have a goal you want to accomplish, you stand a 98% chance of accomplishing it, or at least getting very close to it. Because, the goal, it's the journey that you take, not necessarily the goal you reach. Sometimes the goal becomes unimportant as the journey is reached. But you have a 98% chance of getting more of it accomplished if you will just combine measurement, measure the progress, making sure you're motivated and inspired, and planning. 98%. So this is how planning impacts your thinking. Now, what you have to realize is that when you have a wish or an idea, that's like this part of your brain, and it's getting very excited and it's seeing the possibilities, but that's not the part of your brain that has to do the planning. Okay, so you have two different sides of your brain. So we have our excitable side and we have our concrete planning side. The problem is you cannot do them at the same time. You cannot think in that way. So one is more linear, one is more abstract, and that's okay. We need them both. But the plans, when you get those plans together, you're bridging that gap between that beautiful goal that you have and achieving that goal and having a way to get there. So you have to have the why am I doing this and how you're going to do it. They're two very different things. So make sure that you have a very strong why, a really good reason as to why you want to do something. And then that why part will engage that part of the brain. And then the how part engages the other part of the brain. So you have that very strong why, and you start to figure out how. And the why and the how are different. They can't happen at the same time. And that goes for, if you have employees, you have to build a very strong why to get them motivated, to get in there to work for you. And you have to have a very strong why. And when you have that very strong why, then you'll start to build on the how it gets done. So the planning will bring that order to your mind. Now, why is order so important? And why am I talking about planning? You may say, well, before I've done this and I've never really planned it. And I have like a sketch in my mind of what it's going to look like. And it sort of gets there. No, that's not good enough. That will accomplish some goals for sure, but it's not going to get you to that really big type C goal. You've got to have a plan, and you've got to have that plan to bring order to your mind. Now, Thomas Troward, who was a philosopher in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he talked about a starting point. And I just want to read to you what my mentor and friend, Bob Proctor, wrote about Thomas Troward and the starting point. He says, Thomas Troward talked about the starting point. I love that man's work. I truly love it. Now, the starting point is such a magnificent concept. It's something that you can read over and over and over again. He says it's an old saying that order is heaven's first law. Order is heaven's first law. And like many other old sayings, it contains a much deeper philosophy than appears immediately on the surface. Order is heaven's first law. Calm. Everything positive you can think about. You can speak in superlatives all day long and you'd still fall short. You're talking about something beyond the scope of our vocabulary. Heaven, order is heaven's first law. All the words in our vocabulary are third dimensional words. And when you get into talking about God, spirit, infinite, you don't have a word in your vocabulary to describe that. You've gone beyond the third dimension. We're talking about something that's so good, you can't even describe it. And that's a heavenly state. Now, he says getting things into better order is the great secret of progress. See that order and progress? Why is that order so important? Because that's how you're going to progress towards your goal. It's the great secret of progress. If you want to make progress, make order essential in your life. Got to have order. We're now able to fly through the air, not because the laws of nature have been altered, but because we learn to arrange things in the right order to produce the result. Isn't that a wonderful concept? You know, nothing changed. Nothing in nature changed to enable us to fly and to build airplanes and to get, travel around the world, travel to the moon. Nothing in nature changed. What happened was we figured out the right order to do things to enable that to happen. So it's all things are possible. We've always been able to fly. It was because we learned to arrange things in the right order to produce that result. Well, if you want to get a result you haven't got, if you want to get a result beyond where you are, you've got to get things in a better order. That's the reason for planning. Listen to that again. If you want to get a result you haven't got, if you want a result beyond where you are, you've got to get into better order. That's just beautiful. Things themselves have existed from the beginning of the world. What was wanting was an introduction of the personal factor. You'll hear people say, God will do it. God will not do it. You got to do it. God works to and through you, but you got to do it. It doesn't mind. And we can take ourselves there and we say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring this into form. I can see it. I can see it. If I can hold it in, or if I can roll it in my head, I can roll it in my hand. Get serious. For goodness sakes, you are the most powerful creature on the planet. Wise words from Bob Proctor. So we just have to get things in the right order. So when things aren't working right, if you can see it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. I've never quite heard him say roll it, but if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. And if that's the case, you just have to get everything in the right order. And I know sometimes it can be very discouraging because I've been discouraged and I know this stuff. I have been studying this for years. And there are times I get really discouraged because something's not happening. And I know consciously the reason it's not happening is because I've missed something, or I don't have the plan, or I don't have it going right. Subconsciously, though, because of those paradigms there, it's telling me, just forget it. You can't do this. You're not able to accomplish that. And it becomes very discouraging. So we have to always keep in our mind, and when those thoughts come in from our subconscious, our paradigms telling us we need to get rid of them. So here's the thing. When you look, anything in your mind is possible. It's the subconscious that will pull us back. You want something bad enough, you have to create a new path. You have to have the creative path of the desire, and then the other path of a plan. Think about the why. If that's all you think about, you're a dreamer. Now, listen to this. So if all you ever think about, you're a dreamer. But if all you ever do is taking actions and you're super, super busy, that's all you are, is busy. You're not necessarily accomplishing anything. See, you have to have them together. You have to have the why, and you have to have a plan, so that you have that creative part, but you also have concrete. And remember, they can't work at the same time. So you have to have that idea, and then you have to have a plan of action. You have to have an idea of what you're going to do. So you have to find ways to have many successes. That's why you have sub goals. So you have many, many successes. And then you have to realize that they're successes. You see, when we have a mini success, sometimes we just slough it off and we say, this isn't working. But if you start to go back and say, but look at this, what this did. Look what I did here. You start to have as many successes. There's little actions you're taking, whatever the action is. And you have to start looking at them as successes so that you can move forward. So set a goal and focus on the goal. Now, if the goal is too big, sometimes the mind won't even put you into action because it just doesn't even believe it. So if you're earning $10,000 and you say, next year I'm going to earn $1 million, that is such a huge jump. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just a really huge jump. And your mind's probably going to shut down on you, say, who are you kidding? So break it down. You know, earn $10,000 a year. Okay, let's just say this month I'm going to earn $1,500. And then when you earn $1,500, okay, next month I'm going to earn $2,000 or $2,500, and start taking as many goals and as many steps. If the goal is too small, like you earn $10,000, you can say, okay, next year I'm going to earn $12,000. If the goal is too small, you won't even do the action. So either way, you're not going to do the action. So if it's too big, you won't do the action because it's not believable. And if it's too small, you won't do the action because it's not exciting. So we have to find that sweet spot between too big and too small, kind of like the three bears, right? Goldilocks and three bears. This chair's too big. This one's too small. This one's just right. That's what you have to do with the goal. It can't be too big, can't be too small. It has to be just right, just in that sweet spot. So what happens when you do that? When you have a small success, it shifts your vibration. And it could be something really small, like maybe you picked up the phone and you called somebody. Maybe you cold call somebody and you actually got them to book an appointment with you. That's a small success. That's a really small step, but it shifts your vibration because you're like, wow, I did that once, I can do it again. And so then you do it the next time, you do it. Maybe you didn't even get them to book a call, but the fact that you stepped out and talked to somebody made that success. So it could be just the little things that you're doing. So let's keep that in mind. We have to realize that that shifts our vibration. And the next time you do something like that and you have a small success, really think about how you're feeling, because you are shifting your vibration. And as you shift your vibration, you are moving to a different person. And when you make a big shift in vibration, because your goal is always much higher than where you are. And so as you shift, you're becoming somebody you're not today. And if you're going to accomplish that goal, you have to become somebody different. It's not the goal. It's not, yes, you want to have that goal, but it's not the goal. It's who you become, because you can't accomplish the goal where you are today. It's not possible because you're not the right person. And if you have a big goal, you have to become somebody bigger. You have to stretch and you have to reach that goal. So without a clear plan, your brain becomes distracted by various daily things. We all have a lot to do. I could find something every minute of the day to keep me occupied, but it doesn't mean I'm moving towards my goal. It's just busyness. So you have to realize that without a plan, a definite plan, you will go do whatever, but that's not going to help you reach a goal. We'll get distracted. And the biggest distraction we have is our phones. Stay off the phone. Have a mini success. So your brain sets that goal, but then you need to have something that you're doing, because the other side of it is you need to have some kind of immediate gratification. That's why you need to have those small wins every day. And every day, what a great idea to write down what went really well today. What did I do? And then in a month, you can look back and say, wow, look how far I've come in this month. Look at all these things I accomplished that I wouldn't have accomplished had I not had a plan and had I not put action behind it. And now look where I am at the end of the month. Try it. Just do it for 30 days and see what a difference it makes. Planning is the bridge to getting you to that goal. You've got to have a plan. And when you start to do a plan and you start to see what you can accomplish, then you can make it a habit. And it becomes a definite habit. And you can develop strategies and timelines, and you can develop a schedule. Sometimes we do things inadvertently. I've told you about my son. When I was in college, I used to plan out which classes I was going to get what grade in, because I knew how much time it was going to take me. I knew I didn't think I was ever a straight A student. So I'd say, okay, I want to get an A in this and this and this and this and this, and a B's okay here and here. And probably 95% of the time, I got exactly the grades I set out to get. Which leads me to say, what if I had set out to get all A's? You see, that was my confidence level. I didn't think I could get straight A's. I didn't believe I could get straight A's. So I figured out which courses were the most important for me to get A's in, which ones I wanted to get the A's in. And then I went, okay, they can be a B. It's all right. So you have to set a plan. That was my plan then. You can set whatever plans you want, and you can accomplish those goals. And just figure out what is the next step that you need, and develop the strategies and the timeline that you need. I have a really big goal right now, and my deadline is next week. And as next week is coming, I've got 2 other really big projects going on at the same time. Now, sometimes that little bit of stress is okay. And I think, sometimes we think we can't have any stress, but I work pretty well under stress. I get more accomplished when I'm under a little bit of stress than if I don't have any stress or deadlines. So for me, I like to set timelines. I need to get things done. And if I have 3 major projects, actually I have 4 major projects coming at the same time, it's okay, because I work better that way. I get more accomplished that way. That may not be you. That's not for everybody. Okay. But find those small successes you can do and start checking them off and writing them down. Today I did this, today I did that. And you don't need to know everything in every step. You just have to get something down and start moving towards it, and the steps start to fill in. And as you do that, you'll go back to your plan. You'll start to, leave a little space. If you're writing it down, if you're on a computer, you can just, of course, easily do that. But if you're writing it down, leave a little space, because probably other ideas are going to come to you as you do step 1. You're going to get another idea for step 4. And so you'll need a place to put that. So keep that in mind, and just work on the next step or 2. And if you have 2 or 3 or 4 projects at the same time, do a little bit for each one each day. And that way you can get them all done within the next week, or whatever your timeline is, so that you too can get it accomplished. So if you want help with this, by all means, reach out to me. And I do want to let you know that that we're going to be doing a whole series on Think and Grow Rich, which I'm very excited about. And we're going to take each chapter and go through it. So it's going to be something that you're not going to want to miss. So it will be in a couple episodes from now. We're going to go chapter each week and just go through the principles that Napoleon Hill laid out for success, and that he had 500 of the most successful people at that time when he was living, who verified that he was right on those success principles. And they were basically the things that they did. Now, did they do all 13? Probably not, and they maybe did a few extra things or left out a few. When I was looking through them, thinking about what my son had done, he didn't do all 7 or all 13, but he probably did 10 and had great success. So I want you to make sure you're joining us for those episodes, because they're going to be super important and you're going to learn so much. And if you've ever read the book Think and Grow Rich, and this is what I did the first few times I read it. I read the book and I thought, okay, that was a good book. Okay, now what? If you want to know the other part of now what, don't miss it, because I'm going to share with you now what, and you come on live and we can interact and you can ask questions. It'll be like a little mini coaching session. So I encourage you to do that. So I hope that helped you, and I hope I've inspired you to take a few minutes in the next couple of days and to come up with a plan of action for your goal, because it's super, super important. This is Patricia Stepler, and I want you to realize that you have everything you need inside of you to accomplish your dream.